Hi there, I'm Abel James, and welcome to the Fat Burning Man podcast. So there's some pretty exciting things going on at this end of the microphone. We have the South by Southwest Film Interactive and Music Festival coming up in Austin, Texas, my digs, as well as the Paleo FX conference that's going on at the same time, where I'm going to be presenting and hanging out with a bunch of my Caveman buddies. So I'm really looking forward to that. And also I'm speaking into a brand spanking new microphone here that I got exclusively for podcasting, believe it or not. And just a few months ago, it's always funny where life takes you, but I would have had no idea that I'd be podcasting right now. And so thanks to all of you out there who've given me a kick in the butt and told me to get on it and put these things out there. I really had no idea how many people listen to these things, but I appreciate all of the great feedback I've gotten from you, all the emails and comments on my blog as far as how much you like the podcast so far. So I'm definitely going to keep doing it. And actually, this microphone is the same one that Rush Limbaugh uses. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but you're going to have to let me know how it sounds out there. It sounds okay on this side. And by the way, actually, someone just told me that one of the things that helps in terms of the rankings of podcasts is if you review it and hopefully give it a positive review. So if you do like what you're hearing, either in this podcast coming up or in the ones that you've listened to before, please leave me a review, which you can do right in iTunes. So today we're going to be talking about the crazy, wacky world of paleo. And it's a question that I get a lot from my readers. What in the world is this whole eating like a caveman thing? Well, the answer is that it's a lot more than just wielding a spear and dragging your knuckles around and bloodletting. It's actually a very real thing and something that's gaining a lot of momentum recently. And obviously, if you've been reading my blog or listening to my podcasts, I am a huge proponent of eating in a way that's biologically appropriate for the human body. And I think as far as paleo goes, when it first started out, actually to be quite honest, the first time I heard about it, I was very skeptical because it was when Lauren Cordain's original book came out. It was very low fat, low salt, no alcohol, caffeine, and a lot of those things that it prohibited me from having would, I think, cut down on the fun in my life. So it didn't sound enjoyable, and of course it worked for some people in terms of losing weight. But what's happened in the past few years is that it's become a lot more flexible, and it's also co-opted a lot of other mini movements. So with my parents growing up on a farm, growing up in the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire, and my brother's an organic farmer, I've always been into real foods and the idea of quality, healthy foods and putting them into your body. And I've always tried to be healthy. Now, that didn't really work in my personal experience when I was eating low fat, according to my doctor's orders a few years ago. And so what's happened recently with paleo, especially with guys like Mark Sisson and Rob Wolf to some degree, is a return to the acceptance of fat as a very important macronutrient. But that's neither here or there, because I want to give you guys a quick intro into what exactly it means to be paleo, because what paleo is constantly evolving, so to speak. And right now is a very, very exciting time to be looking at the crazy, wacky world of paleo. So I'll start right here. Most diets teach you that you can be lean, but only if you're hungry and miserable, if you're dieting. And I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be like that. And going paleo doesn't require any calorie counting, expensive drugs, marathon workouts, iron willpower, or gloom. When you use the principles of paleo nutrition and fitness, not only will you build a lean, muscular body, but you'll also eat often and extremely well. So if you're a foodie, then rejoice. What paleo really is eating wild animals and wild plants, and eating the highest quality that you can find. It has nothing to do with bloodletting or not using your toothbrush, although you can do that if you want to. But what paleo is very simple. It's, in my mind, it's eating real food. And paleo isn't really a diet as much as it is a lifestyle. So living paleo doesn't require iron-fisted decrees. It's more of a paradigm for making food choices based on what will nourish your body and your mind. It's a framework for making informed decisions about how to fuel your body, as well as a template that's infinitely customizable to meet your own tastes, needs, and goals. And that's really important, because it doesn't say you have to eat 1,800 calories a day, and they can come from anywhere, especially if they're from, our branded boxed packages that are really expensive and full of chemicals. It's saying eat these types of food. You don't really need to count calories, and have fun while you're doing it. Customize it to your unique tastes and your goals. So what is paleo? Well, it goes by a lot of names. Paleo, hunter-gatherer, caveman, primal, ancestral, prehistoric, all these. And depending on whom you ask, these terms provoke confusion, dismissal, anger, or cult-like loyalty. And it doesn't really matter what you call it, but they all boil down to the same general idea, that we should eat like spear-wielding cavemen. And it's true. Our genetics are nearly identical to those of our hunter-gathering ancestors. Your Stone-Age body still thinks that you're chasing woolly mammoths around the savannah, dodging saber-toothed tigers, and browbeating your enemies into submission. And people often ask me if I eat like a caveman. I always take it as a compliment because I certainly wouldn't want to be accused of eating like a standard American. That would be brutal. And it's no secret that I'm a proud advocate for a diet that approximates the nutritional composition of what we're genetically designed to eat. And I encourage my clients and readers and listeners to experiment with a paleo approach to eating and lifestyle, and I'm very active, as you probably know, in the paleo and primal communities. So yes, I eat like a caveman. The paleo and primal approach is often pushed to the fringe, mostly due to the fact that critics misunderstand it, fear change, are complete morons, or have some ulterior motive. And there are also the diehard cavemen who take the primal approach to the extreme by refusing to use soap or toothpaste, or by participating in bloodletting parties. And these are the ones who seem to get the attention from the media, but most paleo folks are more mainstream. You might not even notice that they're all around you except for the fact that they're lean, strong, attractive, and glowing. And people can make caveman jokes as much as they'd like, but there's really no doubt that the paleo diet works in terms of losing fat and even growing muscle. And no, I'll just stop everything right here. Eating like a human is not a fad. An approach to nutrition and lifestyle that's informed by the ancestral considerations of nutrition isn't just for knuckle draggers. In fact, in my opinion, the principles of paleo are light years ahead of any other dietary framework. And the more we can approximate the nutritional composition of the hunter-gatherer diet and lifestyle, the more we're going to thrive. And not everyone wants to live like a caveman. I get that. I don't. But everyone can be informed by how our ancestors lived and thrived in their environment. And you don't have to live in a mud hut, dress in bearskin, or participate in bloodletting to eat like a human should. Are there issues with eating like a hunter-gatherer? Sure. For one, there was no cookie-cutter caveman diet. It was enormously variable depending on geography, season, etc. But I can assure you that cavemen were not eating ho-hos, diet ice cream bars, or microwaved soy burgers. In my mind, and I'm taking some license here, but paleo really boils down to one simple principle. Eat real food. Foods that are able to be consumed in nature, right from the tree, ground, or carcass, are much more healthful options than foods that require manipulation or refining to be safely digested, and certainly more healthful than something you're going to find at a box at some supermarket somewhere. And I'm not interested in squabbling about if eating sprouted lentils once a day or sipping an occasional gluten-free beer will lead to dietary disaster. I just eat real, high-quality plants and animals as often as I possibly can. That's paleo. And fortunately, paleo as a movement is becoming more flexible. Folks like Rob Wolf, Mark Sisson, and countless others have added nuances to the paleo approach since Lauren Cordain released the paleo diet a decade ago. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes in the next few years. But one thing's for sure, paleo is getting huge, and it's going to be one heck of a fun ride. So how did we get here? Well, the low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet recommended by nutritionists, doctors, and conventional wisdom sounds great in principle. Indeed, the belief that fat makes you fat is a wonderfully simplistic concept. But it's not true. After decades of fat phobia, we've witnessed the weight of the average American skyrocket. Today, more than 72% of adult men in America and more than 64% of adult women are overweight or obese. And a low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet is biochemically flawed. Avoiding fat in favor of carbs does not prevent weight gain, it causes it. Clearly, conventional wisdom's diet isn't working, so we seek out other solutions. Enter the fad diet and supplement companies. Pushing their magic fat blaster pill or exercise in a bottle miracle potions, these vultures will say almost anything to make a sale and tend to only reference research when it suits business. This presents another interesting problem. Any company can find or conduct a study that supports almost any premise, which the media is eager to distort and sensationalize in a way they always seem to do. And sadly, the goal of most companies is not to educate you, but to condition you as a consumer. So tune out the peddlers of conventional nonsense and the wildly desperate gurus. Ignore the alarmist drumbeat of the sensationalist media. You need to try something different. The Paleo Lifestyle, now well on its way to being a major movement in our society, doesn't thrive on swindling, circus antics, or peddling. It just works. You may be surprised, shocked, or confused by its methods that often stand in direct opposition to popular dieting beliefs and may challenge your comforting worldview, but don't dismiss them simply because they're out of the box compared to the status quo. Open your mind and reap the rewards. Essentially, I believe this is a Lauren Cordain quote, we're cavemen living in the space age. Our genetics are nearly identical to those of our hunter-gathering ancestors. And today, it's much easier to survive, but with a rampant supply of fat-storing foods, it's tragically, incredibly easy to become fat. There are 3 compounding problems here. Number 1, we're expending little to no energy to obtain our food. Number 2, our antiquated instincts cause us to overeat modern foods that contain unnatural amounts of concentrated calories and do not ultimately satiate our hunger. And number 3, we're genetically programmed to store fat as a survival mechanism. In the glory days of hunter-gathering, the opportunity to eat required immense effort and risk. If you wanted meat, you had to run a buffalo off a cliff, scoop a jackrabbit out of thin air, or snap the neck of a feral swine with your bare hands. Eating only came as the direct result of enormous expenditures of energy. Additionally, our bodies simply haven't had enough time to adapt to the products of modern food processing and the environment of drive-through convenience that's come along with it. Molten chocolate cakes don't exist in nature, nor do Slurpees or deep-fried ice cream. In fact, the obscene amount of sugar in these gut bombs would have been nearly impossible for our ancestors to consume. To put it into perspective, you would have to eat 3 pounds of carrots for the sugar equivalent of 1 bottle of Coke. And these foods play to and take advantage of our instinct to binge on sweet foods that fatten us up in preparation for the formerly inevitable meager times ahead. But here's the issue. While you may know that food is readily available and you'll eat again in a few short hours, your body doesn't. So as a no longer handy survival mechanism, you readily store extra calories, especially carbs, as fat. Much like a squirrel stores nuts for the winter, human fat cells are designed to hoard energy. You have approximately 30 billion fat cells, which can expand 1,000 times in volume and can divide infinitely to form new fat cells. That's a lot of Crisco. Ironically, the same mechanisms we acquired to help us survive are killing us. But your body is a biochemical marvel. It can squeeze every last bit of nutrition out of any substance remotely resembling food to literally turn Twinkies into fingernails. With magical powers like that, is it really so hard to believe that burning fat is simple and straightforward if you eat the right foods that you were built to eat and get off the couch every once in a while? It really is simple, and there's hope. Here's an overview of the natural human diet. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the forces of natural selection tweaked and perfected your physiology to function optimally on a diet mainly of plants and animals, vegetables, meat, and occasional fruits, nuts, and seeds, which are naturally high in fat, protein, and fiber, and relatively low in net carbohydrates. Since the advent of agriculture and especially industrial food processing, we've become carbohydrate eaters. But because we're simply not built to handle the massive amount of carbohydrates in the foods that we eat today, our bodies readily convert them to sugar to be stored as fat. Up against millions of years of genetic adaptation, the food products of agriculture and the Industrial Revolution that contradict our natural diet should be held in great suspicion. Indeed, not all new foods are damaging and not all natural foods are good for you. But with the standard American diet making us progressively fatter and sicker, it begs the question, if something is naturally inedible, why should we be eating it at all? Paleo nutrition returns the body to its optimal fat-burning state by following the natural human diet. Is all modern post-agricultural food harmful, fattening, or unhealthy? Not necessarily, but the paleo follows this principle. Eat plenty of whole and naturally edible foods and be skeptical of manipulated, processed, and invented food products. When you reduce your consumption of modern foods such as grains, sugars, and other simple carbs in favor of natural plants and animals that approximate the nutritional composition of the human diet, your body will utilize fat as its main fuel source. Hence, the fat-burning man.